Hey, what's going on? Thank you for tuning into the Coach's Couch. I'm your host, Coach C's, here to bring you some sports information fresh off the couch. Stay tuned. All right. So, this is episode, I think it's 4 now. We got Coach Stu with us, and we're going to be talking about some new topics. Um, and I don't know, Coach Stu, if you want to introduce yourself and where you're from.
Yeah, this is Coach reporting live and direct. The homie Caesar uh, from Santa Clara, California. I've been coaching with Caesar for the past 2-3 years now over at Monte Vista. So it's been a little relationship. So appreciate you having me on the little podcast.
Yeah, it's cool. We're just trying to get it going. We're right now we have like I think 14 subscribers. We're getting there. We're living
Hey,
it.
slow and steady.
It's cool though because during the time, like during all this quarantine time, we get to do something and get our minds off of like just work or whatever. And so it's been pretty cool to just sit down and just chop it up over sports, especially since sports isn't going on right now. So like today, we're going to be talking about The Last Dance, not necessarily going into detail. We don't want to give no spoilers or anything like that. So um, it's interesting because I was just talking to Mel last night, my wife, and I told her I think this is like kind of it's ironic that this is coming out right now because again, Jordan is like coming to save the day because I mean a lot of analysts and sports critics believe that Michael Jordan, not necessarily the greatest um, athlete of all time, but one of the greatest players because of his impact on the game. He elevated the game of basketball and he became like an icon, bigger than the sport, right? So it's interesting. So episodes 1 and 2 are released on ESPN, and they get released every Sunday. So we'll be chiming in every Sunday, Monday, or reviewing kind of like our thoughts about it. But I noticed that a lot of debates are being sparked right now with on Facebook or whatever, and they're asking, is he really the greatest of all time? Is he the GOAT? With all the information and stuff. And I kind of just said that I think he still is. To me, he still is. I didn't grow up watching him, meaning I did, but I didn't because, you know, like during his great reign, that was the early '90s, and so I was a little kid, and then I didn't watch him per se, but I did. When I was in high school, I started watching the remakes and the all the stuff that came out after, all his highlights, all his documentaries that came out on him and stuff. And I just found love in the fact that, he was a country dude, came from really nothing. Just through hard work, he became one of the greatest athletes of all time. So it just gave you motivation as an athlete, right? To go out there and strive to do your best. So um, my initial reaction, episode 1 and episode 2, I mean, I thought it was great stuff. It opens your eyes up a little bit more on the inside, and it kind of, to me, it gives more appreciation to the Bulls because you didn't. I mean, growing up, I didn't. I mean, I'm sure for you too, coaches. Like when you grow up, you just think. I mean, because we're pretty young, the Bulls were just the Bulls. They were just one of the greatest teams of all time, and so you don't really see all the history behind it and how bad the program was, all the way up to like where it's at today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what makes this like conversation so interesting too, because it's like a guy that's recognized as like arguably the greatest athlete of all time, has debates surrounded by him, around him, I should say. So I definitely think that the timing of this documentary being released is there's something behind that. I mean, especially because like you could have released this, like he's been out of the league for what, almost 20 something years, 20 plus years now.
Yeah, for
um so it's like I think there's something to be said about the releasing of it. But I mean, like I was telling you before, I didn't really grow up watching Jordan like play on TV, but definitely understand like the what he brings to the table as far as like superstar power and all that. I mean, I from wearing his shoes to buying gear and stuff like that. There's no doubting that when it comes to what he brings to the table as far as like popularity and all that. And I think that them releasing this documentary is just going to elevate him even more as far as like in global perspective. And why it just reinforced why people even mess with him to begin with. So
Yeah, it's interesting because like I started thinking, as I'm watching this, I'm like, man, I didn't really understand. I didn't realize all these different things that happened or transpired, that were related to like him as a player. You only think of Michael Jordan as like the phenom athlete, the greatest of all time or whatever. And as you get older, you start watching these players like LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and all them, and you see other greats that you see them in live, right, in person. And so it's kind of hard to believe that anyone else could compare, right? And so you talk to your parents, or you talk to people that are older than you and that grew up watching him, and to hear them say, "Nah, man, he's the greatest. It's not close." I'm watching these two different players, and it doesn't add up because what he did off the field or off the court um, stacks so much higher than where he's at right now in terms of the game of basketball. And it's just funny because you know this is all happening, and if you look at the ratings and stuff, like this morning, my phone, or even after episode 2 aired last night, it just started blowing up like on Twitter of how like, dude, I couldn't even get into my ESPN Plus because it was so populated. Everyone was trying to watch it. So I couldn't
mhm.
get in. And I'm like, man, like he's still the GOAT, right? He's still the greatest. He says something, he does something like something this big or of this magnitude, everyone's watching, you know? So it's been pretty cool to see um, a old childhood idol, I guess, is out there doing something like this and kind of speaking volumes about it. I don't know. I mean, there's not too much stuff in there that I don't think is more of a spoiler. I think if you like dig deep and you go in, you can kind of like you can. I mean, there's some bits and parts. Did you ever watch the documentary, the ultimate? I think it was like the ultimate Michael Jordan.
There's like another one that kind of reminded me of this one that it wasn't it like where they just kind of talked about his team and all that too. It's just like it's very similar. I don't know what it was called, but it was more like in reference to like their run. Yeah, I don't know if it went too much into like the the back behind the scenes stuff like this show's doing, but
Right.
I remember a documentary happening like a long time ago that like I seen it like a cousin's house or something like that, where it just talked about like the championships that they won and
Yeah.
triangle offense and all that good stuff. So I may have seen the one that you're talking about. So.
I have like this DVD. I still have it. I don't know where it's at, but I know it's probably like in storage or something. But it's like the accumulation of like all these different documentaries, and one was made in the 80s, and one was late 80s, one was made in the mid 90s and stuff. Like I think one of the documentaries was after their first three-peat, um and it like came like during the time where he was playing baseball and stuff, so then you got a lot more footage of him traveling with the minor league team. And so
Mhm.
it's just interesting to see like the contrasting times and everything that he was talking about in these two episodes, and everything that kind of affected everything. Like everyone, again, you think like he is the greatest or whatever, but you just didn't realize in that last season what he really went through. I mean, that's all common knowledge, right? Like to all those people, they already knew like the problems that was going on with the organization. um I was talking with Mel this morning, and she was asking me, she was like, "Dang, was Scottie Pippen really that good and all this stuff?" And I was kind of telling her how people kind of judge Jordan on that because he played with some greats, and Scottie was one of the best number two players out there on the court during that time and of all time, right? So it's like, um, to go in the depth like how they're doing it right now is pretty cool. I was like mesmerized. I was like, I watched episode 2 this morning, and I was like, dang, like this is really going deep right here. And I didn't know any of it, so it's super entertaining.
And I think a lot of people did, and I think that's why that it's important that this show, not maybe not important, but it's cool that the show dropped because it gives you layers, right? Because everybody, again, Michael Jordan's one of those people where people just don't question him, right? 6 for O, 6-0 in the finals, all these crazy stats, top 5 in scoring,
Yeah,
all these NBA first teams, all these NBA defensive first teams, every accolade that you could think of, just a polarizing figure, and nobody ever like questioned him because he's like God, right?
Right.
But I think that, a lot of the stuff that the first episode talked about with Scottie Pippen is important because you go and look at any team that's winning a championship, you have to have a supporting cast. I don't care what nobody says. And I feel like a lot of the time when people talk about Jordan, that's overlooked. Scottie Pippen was a really, really good basketball player, dude. Like he wasn't like the scorer that Jordan was, but what he did on the defensive end is like crazy, dude. Like he's arguably probably like a top 5 defender of like all time, just
Yeah.
on that alone. And not to mention the year that, Jordan left, he took his team to the finals, on his own back, So it's like, uh, he was a very, very capable player. And to hear that, he was not compensated for, his production, like they talked about in that first episode, was kind of crazy to me because I didn't really know that.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I guess, showed some true colors from people like Jordan, for example, and like how that organization was like being operated at the time. But yeah, Scottie Pippen, I mean, I think his resume speaks for itself. And I feel like if you really understand basketball, you know that Jordan doesn't win those 6 championships without Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, I don't think he does. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Scotty was with him for the most time, right? Like he was, I think he was a Bull for like what, like nine going on 10 years.
Something like that. And then I forget, I think, did Scottie leave first or was it Jordan?
And
I think Scottie left first.
did he? I'm not sure. See, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm interested. I don't even want to go look it up and do all that stuff because I have a feeling like that's what's going to be in the next episode.
Yeah.
Like new information to me, and being a football player and more heavily based in football, like I never really went deep into all that stuff. You just get common knowledge through watching certain things or just like reading about it, right? But it was never one of those things where I went in there and I like dissected the team, and I was wondering what was the negatives and all that stuff. And it was crazy to me to they were going such in depth about like him as a person, Phil Jackson as a person, and like their impact on the team. And it's interesting. I was like talking with my sister yesterday, and she was interviewing me for like school, as a coach, and she was asking me certain things about like what makes a team so great. And I was telling her like straight up, it was like the name team, that's what makes a team great in a sense, right? So you have teamwork, you have the compatibility, you have players overcoming, their own individual goals and all that stuff, and they work together and they form teamwork and they form bonds, and they're able to push through and persevere through adversity in the form of competition. And so I was telling her, I was like, that's pretty much what I believe, makes a team great. And I was like, man, in watching these episodes, it was like, even at the pro level, that especially in basketball when you only have like what, like 15 players on the team, it's important for every single player on the team to know their role, to be compensated fairly for it, and to be felt, to have a important spot, right? If you don't feel important, or you don't feel like your services are needed or something like that, then you're not going to be going 110%, especially as a pro, dude, like when that's your livelihood. So it's interesting to see that all that was transpiring because, I mean, nowadays you think of players being prima donnas and stuff like that and demanding contract reconstructions and all this stuff, right? Restructuring their contracts and just wanting trades, or they're not happy, then they want to leave or whatever. Um, so it's interesting to see like the old style of things, like the owners back then were like super just like, hey, if you sign that contract, I don't want to talk to you no more, like it is what it is, right? You sign that dotted line, it is what it is. I don't expect to hear from you. But now with all the new CBAs and stuff like that, and you got your players union and stuff representing you, and they're going to go to bat for you, like to help you out, you open the door for a little bit more you know okay, you're a rookie, you signed a rookie contract, it's time to restructure your contract and get paid your due for all the production that you've been putting out. And then everyone's behind you, agents, all this stuff, so you're gonna get paid, right?
Hmm.
It's crazy to think that back then things were still happening, but it was so old school, right? So it's cool. It's crazy. It's good to get a good look and stuff, and I'm interested to see what's going to happen. I'm definitely going to tune in every single Sunday and try to watch both of them or whatever. Um, yeah, that's like my go-to thing now on Sunday.
No, definitely. And like I said, I'm always open to I like arguing with people, or not arguing, just having debates about Jordan and LeBron, because it's like, in my opinion, I feel like, after LeBron's done playing, like I think he's going to be the second closest thing to, stardom or
Oh yeah,
um
he's one of the greatest players of all time, no doubt. It's funny. So to me, someone posted a picture on Facebook, and it was Michael Jordan, trying to poster somebody. And I look closely, and on the back of his jersey it says "GOAT," and then I'm looking closely. I'm like, "Oh crap, that's LeBron James." So I read the little description of the picture. They said, um, if these two players went at it, Jordan would poster him up like this, no doubt, like question mark. And my response to it was, styles make fights type of thing, and so it's like if you have this type of LeBron James who's been bred for this type of competition. He grew up playing in this type of competition. Well, let's face it, it's a little soft, right? Compared to how it was back in the '90s. And it's not necessarily just soft. It's just I think the refs let a lot more things go, right? So you come out with scars, bruises, and all that stuff back then. Now it's like if you touch a dude the wrong way, you'll get ejected, you know. And so it's it, I think nowadays you get LeBron, and I think this is why he gets a knock. He's just trying to play the system. He's trying to play the game of basketball like how it's being played today, and you can't necessarily knock on him for that because he sees like James Harden. Hey, you reach, I'm taking it, and I'm getting those free throws. And so it's the same thing with LeBron. I feel like he's just trying to take advantage of the game and play it like how it's being played today. So I said if today's LeBron played against that era of Jordan, I mean, of course, I think Jordan's going to get the better of him in a sense because he's going to be playing with his strengths of that decade or that era or whatever, and then LeBron James going to be playing basketball how he knows how to play. So if he sees Jordan trying to come dunk on him, he might try to secure his place and take that charge or whatever. Hope Jordan half those dunks that Jordan did sometimes it could have went either way, right? It could have been a foul on him, or whatever. And sometimes, most of the time, nothing was called, right? Especially sometimes when he would dunk and he would stand over you, and like now that's a T, right? So I mean, there's just a whole lot about it. But I said, if you're not taking any of that into consideration, in my opinion, you just drop two players in their prime, the best of take. Don't worry about like the errors or whatever. I mean, it's hard not to deny that LeBron James is just the bigger, more athletic person, and he's a great ball player. So I mean, you would lean a little bit more on that guy's side. I mean, that's just me.
Yeah, and I used to think the same way too, because like I would just kind of close it off to basketball. But I mean, from a football perspective, Brett did play football in high school, was a highly sought out, athlete. I think he was like a 4 or 5 star recruit, as a receiver in high school. Um, and then if you go and turn on his tape from when he first came into the league, he used to bully dudes. So it's like physically, I think he's probably like one of the few people that would be able to bounce from one era to the other. And I definitely agree with your point about kind of like creating your game around the rules and stuff like that and catering to that. Because like James Harden, for example, you brought him up. Like that dude literally has made his money off of just scoring and playing no defense. Like he has figured that if I jack up 30 shots a game, that's going to be the best recipe. I can live with that, knowing that I'm going to probably get more points than I'm going to make more of an impact on offense than I'm probably going to make on defense. Because that's literally what he does.
Yeah.
His whole game is surrounded around just scoring the ball. But with LeBron, don't get me wrong, like he's definitely changed his game since he's came into the league. But physically, though, I think that he would have just as much success playing now versus back then, just because physically he's just so much bigger and faster and stronger than everybody else. But Jordan was a dog though.
Yeah.
and you had things like handshaking, and it was a lot more physical. And everybody wants to talk about the bad boy Pistons and
Yeah.
teams like that. I'm not gonna say that LeBron would just go over there and just run everybody for their money, but I think that he would be able to carry his own weight though for sure.
No, yeah, I agree. I definitely agree, man. Like it just watching him out. I mean, he's such like a he's like he absorbs just knowledge. You could just tell, like from when he first got into LeBron, that is when he first got into the league to who he is now. He's played smart, right? And so if he knew he needed to be that certain way, I don't think that there's any doubt in my mind that him, the athlete that he is, and what he's displayed, he wouldn't be able to get that done too. I mean, I think he'd be able to rise to the occasion, and you only get a few great players like that that can really just do it, right? Like I honestly don't think um some guy like James Harden and stuff. I mean, I'm not trying to go hard on the dude, but like I don't necessarily think that he'd be able to do what he's doing. Like his play style wouldn't fit in back then. Just going to the rack all soft and looking for contact. I mean, you're going to get a little bit more contact that way back then than you are now. Like now, people are barely touching you, and okay, it's a foul. Back then it's like you're gonna earn the foul type of thing. You're gonna feel this in the morning, and so
Hmm.
I just think that you know, big body LeBron would be able to probably handle it as opposed to some of the little guys. But yeah, man,
Oh yeah,
what?
no, I was just saying, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to debate that, but it's funny. Like you see people kind of going back and forth, and now people are starting to say like, okay, well, now we're watching this segment, and you see like you go a little bit more in depth, and you see like the will of MJ, and just like he relished being under pressure. And so it's like not too many people you see, I mean, do that, right? Like some people handle it a different way. Like Kobe, he had the Mamba mentality, and he did what he had to do. Um, I mean, even that's one thing that they say is like LeBron James sometimes folded under immense pressure, and I agree, but I also say that he folded with a lot less. He didn't have a lot more supporting cast members around, to say the least, right? So like not only it gets tiring when you have to carry the entire team, and the team that you're carrying isn't necessarily the greatest bunch of individuals either. So um yeah, I think it's like you got to take it for what it's worth. You got to see the whole picture, not just be so fixated on your narrative or your opinion that supports your narrative, right?
Hmm.
So it's interesting. People are hella.
No, and I agree. I mean, like my brother's a Heat fan, and we go back and forth to this day about who carried who on those Heat championship teams, and it's like, I mean, Dwayne Wade definitely did his thing for like the first couple runs, but like after that, he started to break down. So it's like, like LeBron did what he could,
Yeah,
and he ran into some challenges that he just couldn't, get over. So I mean,
yeah,
at the end of the day, going to six champ or what is he, 3-6? So going to, I feel like that's not talked enough about too. Is like the fact that it's been to 9, championships. Everybody wants to look at that he's lost 6 of them, but it's like, dude,
yeah,
more than half of his career has been in the finals. So.
yeah, and I mean, and for the most part, dude, he's willed teams to do it, right? Or he's pushed his teams, and like let's face it, like we don't have cameras around, right? It'd be really cool to see some of these championship teams, um, like invest or do what the Bulls are doing right now, where they let cameras in during that last season, the last dance, right? And they 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 pretty much logged everything, right? And so it's pretty interesting to it would be pretty interesting to see like LeBron James, right? If they did a documentary like when he was with the Cavs and they made their first run with him, right? It'd be super interesting to see that, and even the one that when they won it, right? It'd be super cool to see how behind the scenes what was it looking like, right? Because based on what we're seeing in this documentary, there's a lot of things like that as youngsters, like we didn't know that all that stuff was going on. That was all that pressure that was on him or on the other players of the organization. And it's just interesting to see that. And so um, taking that with a grain of salt and judging players and organizations based on that, I think kind of changes the dynamic in which you judge them or you have an opinion now. I mean, if you're being realistic.
Yeah, I mean, like I said in the beginning too, like at least for my perspective, like if you're having a conversation and you want to take Jordan, like that's cool. Like I can respect that. I think it's 1A, 1B in my opinion. Like especially because again, my argument's based off the fact that I didn't watch. The only thing I've ever watched on Jordan was just like I said on videos and stuff. But I understand the kind of player he was. I know his stats. I know what he brings to the table. But I saw LeBron. I see LeBron to this day live. And watch him just physically, athletically be better than 90% of the NBA. So it's just like you said, styles make fights too. Like they're at the end of the day, they're not the same player too. Like
Right.
Kobe was more like Jordan. Like Kobe, emulated his game after Jordan. A lot of their mannerisms, how they played, are very similar. LeBron is not like that. LeBron,
Yeah.
they're different type of beast.
Mm. No, that's actually real good look at I mean overall like what the whole episode is about the last dance and stuff that like pretty much talks about it, right? And the whole entire thing from the beginning of the episode all the way to the second episode. And all these players, it's interesting because it's all about they're these players aren't necessarily about themselves. They're playing in a system where they're asked to do certain things, but overall, they all understand that they have to have a team to be successful. And when you're not complete and everything's relied on you, then like AI in his 76ers, when the rest of the team wasn't helping out, and they I mean they were doing the best that they could, but I mean you it is what it is when you're going against those Lakers. Yeah, man. I mean, you start finding holes, right? And then because you're the number one dude and you're taking everything that you got to take, all eyes are on you, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, everything falls on your shoulders. And even like when we're watching the episodes, um, same thing. Like same thing said. All this stuff started to fall on MJ. But yeah, man. I think that's cool. I think that kind of wraps up what we're talking about. But appreciate you coming on, and then
Yep.
make sure everyone, all your friends, all your family, they all like and subscribe our videos. And then if you're listening, tuning in, and all that stuff, appreciate you guys. And we'll come out with a couple more episodes this week. Hopefully, we get them all up, and then we'll keep it rocking. I appreciate y'all.